crushed me. Not one to duck around the subject. Absolutely crushed me. And that's fine. I don't care. He just played, some black creatures, killed my stuff, then won. And you know what? That's what this deck does. It's a pretty good deck, too.
On your right, James Bush with a Van Meter-esque beard, actually playing something very cool here. He is playing blue-white aggro. It's a base white beatdown deck. He's basically touching blue for Afera and Detention Sphere and 4 main deck copy of Brimaz. So This is, we're seeing basically a new deck here at 5-1. Soldier of the Pantheon, Boros Elite, Precinct Captain, all the stuff you've come to expect.
It was a good beard. Can't argue that.
It was a good beard.
As you do see another look at the beard in the Chicago Bears jersey, Temple of Lightman's going to start things off for Bush. We saw Tenjum playing Orzhov Guildgate and pass the turn back, so we're underway here in round number 7 of 11 in St. Louis. Again, Tenjum's deck is pretty stock. He's got Desecration even, he's got Lifebane Zombie, he's got Ozadat, no Pack Rats in his deck as well, just like we saw from Joe Bernal. It looks like people are really shifting that way. And of course, Thoughtseize, which is going to reveal not 1, but 2 copies of Precinct Captain, a Boros Elite, a Daring Skyjack, a Spear of Heliod, and a Plains.
So far, it's unclear what the blue-white dual land is, but of course we know it is for. From Andrew's side of the table, it's unclear what the blue-white dual is for, but we know it's for the new blue-white god and 4 copies of Detention Sphere.
Yep. So we'll see what he wants to take here, because now he's got a good idea of what he's up against, which is a White Weenie-esque deck. Doesn't, again, as you mentioned, he doesn't know what the blue splash is for, but this is what he's up against. He's going to go ahead and take what looks to be a Precinct Captain. That'll go to the bin, and we'll see what second land Tenjum plays, assuming that he does have one, and then we'll move forward. And there is a Godless Shrine tap, pass the turn back to James, who does draw a land for the turn. So it looks like all systems are go, and he's going to start off with a copy of Precinct Captain. One of the more important cards, and oftentimes people say, if you hit with Precinct Captain, that's it.
Yeah, we call it Battle of Wits, me and Benny Lundquist. If you untap with it in play, you win the game.
That's a bit strong, I think you could say. As here's an Underworld connection on that Plains there from Tenjum passing the turn back. So it looks like he might be a little weak against an aggressive draw here, as Battle of Wits has untapped and is coming into the red zone.
I don't know if the DCI actually makes you finish out the game from here or if they just call it, but
surprisingly enough, we're going to finish. I can't believe it. I'm surprised Andrew hasn't conceded.
I'm stunned.
Yeah, we're going to see a Soldier token come into play here in just a moment. And there that is, and we'll see what Bush is able to follow up with. He's got some nice cards to play. Yeah, he can play 2 more spells, both Battalion. There's a Boros Elite and a Daring Skyjack. I know you love this deck.
I do. I have typically played it with the red splash for Boros Charm, but certainly nothing wrong with touching blue for some new cards. I like that style as well.
Yeah, might as well see if they're good or not. And so far they've been good for Bush. He's sitting at 5-1. His Tenjum's going to play a Temple of Silence, going to put that top card right to the bottom. He is getting beaten down here.
And James here at 5-1, this is really impressive here, this opening. And he's also incidentally done a pretty good job of playing around Bile-Blight so far, not deploying a second copy of a threat if possible. Something to be, you didn't have to worry about before against Mono Black, but now it's definitely something to be on the radar. 2
Bile-Blights in Tenjum's main deck, other removal, 2 Devour Flesh, and 4 copies of Hero's Downfall. He's also got 2 copies of Ultimate Price hanging out as well, as you see Spear of Heliod going to be placed onto the stack here in the first main phase before we do go to attackers. Probably the best time to play that. Going to send everybody in the red zone. 2 Battalion triggers, 1 for the Skyjack, 1 for the Elite, and it looks like Tenjum's going to take a whole bunch.
Right on the chin.
Yeah. It's going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 damage for Tenjum. Trigger that Precinct Captain, put another Soldier into play. I don't know if there's any coming back from this, because again, this is a deck that doesn't have a Mutilate-esque effect. It's certainly in game 1, because you don't expect people to be main decking Drown in Sorrow. And so, yeah, you see Tenjum is just going to pick it up after casting a Thoughtseize and Connection. He says, wow, I just got beat down pretty good here.
Yep. Precinct Captain claims another victim.
It sure does. James Bush going to win game number 1 here with his white-blue aggro deck. Moving to the sideboards here. I've got Tenjum in front of me. So we'll take a look at these 3 Doom Blades, Devour Flesh, 3 copies of Blood Baron of Escopa, 2 Dark Betrayal, 4 Duress, and 2 copies of Erebos, God of the Dead. I went over those 15. There's 1 card that's obviously missing. Drown in Sorrow, not there.
Yeah, and we talked about this earlier in the broadcast. Not a lot of decks you naturally wanted against in the format, the way that it appears right now, but certainly very high in raw power. And Andrew may be punished for not having that in his 15. James Bush, I am just in love with your deck. I don't know how else to put it here. Sideboard here, a Revoke Existence, 2 Binding of Thassa, 2 Glare of Piracy, 2 Negate, 2 copies of Lavinia of the 10th. We have not seen much of that one, but that is awesome. 3 Fiend Slayer Paladins, a Banisher Priest, and 2 copies of Rapid Hybridization. He has I believe one rapid hybridization main and then 2 more on the board. So I suspect he's going to want to bring in Fiend Slayer, Paladin, maybe Vanisher Priest as well. Additional copies of rapid hybridization. He is, of course, a little susceptible to Blood Baron, as his creatures are all white, so he may want to have a couple additional answers there, but I believe he's going to keep the core of this deck mostly intact.
It's a pretty good bonus to be able to have an answer to Blood Baron in this form because, you look at the Orzhov version of this deck, they can't get it off the table, obviously. And then the red version, you don't really want to bring in Mortars against this deck, it feels like. Like, it's okay because you have to do what you have to do, but you're not excited about it. Rapid Hybridization, you can target your own guy in response to removal, you can kill their Blood Baron, there's a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, there's a lot more utility in bringing in against removal heavy decks with big finishers than, like you just said, the spot removal spells, which are really only dedicated to answering particular threats.
Again, I expect Tenjum to bring in, of course, these 3 copies of Doomblade. I don't know if this Devour Flesh is going to join us, and you can best believe those 3 Blood Baron with Scopus are going to come in. Dark Betrayal, Duress, and Erebos are probably going to sit on the bench here. But you can definitely tell that right now might be a great opportunity for a white-based aggro deck to really get in under the radar here before people actually decide that, okay, so I actually have to respect these decks and play Drown in Sorrow.
Yeah, and even if that became a big part of it, you could just add more copies of Spear of Heliod and Ajani, which are helpful against sweepers, because some of your threats will now survive sweepers. Additionally, you have to commit less creatures to the board to have a threatening presence. So it's not like the white-based aggro deck can't adapt, but certainly you'd rather be playing in a field without sweepers than with them.
Yeah. I definitely do agree with that. So we'll see what happens here. Again, Tenjum just playing the black-white Orzhov mid-range deck. It's just a take on Mono Black Devotion with some helpful white cards in Obsidian, Ghost Council, Blood Baron, Elspeth, and he's got not 1 but 2 copies of Revoke Existence in his main deck, which is a little bit surprising because you don't see disenchants in main decks nowadays in Magic, but we're starting to get there. And this is obviously a very good disenchant this format because it takes care of gods, Thassa being public enemy number 1. But this might be something that we start to see when you think about all of the decks. They've all got targets for Revoke Existence.
Yeah, since there is enchantment kind of slapdashed on a lot of random powerful permanents in the format, it sort of changes the context of what disenchants mean.
Yeah, this ends up being more of like just a pure removal spell than just like this flexible effect. You think about playing against blue-white, take care of Detention Sphere. You're playing against James Bush, you can take care of that Spear of Heliod. Maybe there are some other targets coming in after sideboard. He's got spheres of his own. Mono Black Mirror, you obviously want to control those
He has his own gods, in fact.
Yeah, he's got a Fara in his deck. Red-green monsters, you can take care of Courser, because it's an enchantment creature for whatever reason. I guess probably so it can be killed by Revoke Existence. And of course, Xenagos, God of Revel. So it feels like just about every deck has targets.
Well, this is not the first time we've seen a Fara on camera. We saw it in a pretty stock Esper list that was just utilizing it alongside Elspeth and Obsidian.
So we see Tenjum going to take a look at his hand. He's on the play this go around. We'll see what he's able to find. Looks like he's going to keep. We'll see what the Bearded Warrior and Mr. Bush is going to do.
James's first, we've had the Junk Reanimator deck on camera earlier. This is the second deck that feels like we're starting to enter some new territory here.
Yeah. It seems like you can really do something with this strategy right now. It's just Soldier of the Pantheon is going to start things off here for Bush. Tenjum just with a Temple of Silence to begin things on his end. And we'll see what he has for a second turn here. Again, no Packrat hiding out here. That's also kind of something in the favor of Bush's deck as well, that people aren't playing Packrat, because Packrat's good against this kind of strategy.
I mean, I think that in the room today, if I had to predict, there's probably still a lot of Packrats floating around, but it has become feeling a little less of a guaranteed 4 of in some of these blacklists.
A far the draw here for Bush. He's just going to play a Daring Skyjack and pass the turn back as Tenjum main phased that ultimate price on Soldier of the Pantheon, maybe to play around Brave the Elements, of course. One of the premier spells in these white-based aggro decks. Swamp is land number 3 for Tenjum, and we'll see what he wants to deploy here, if anything.
A lot of power in his hand here. It looks like he has Blood Baron, Elspeth, and some removal spells along with lands.
There is Precinct Captain, the draw here for Bush. See if he wants to deploy that, but he's going to start by attacking. You saw Tenjum opt to use the removal spell in his main phase with the ultimate price on the Soldier. He does have a Bile Blight in his hand, opting not to use that right away to take care of the Skyjack. So it looks like he's got a different plan for the Skyjack, as here's a Temple of Enlightenment. I'm going to take the top card, Will Bush. You see a Detention Sphere and a Far in his hand. He also has an Azorius Guildgate, too. So looks like he's got a lot of lands to produce blue mana.
Yeah.
That's always one of the problems with this deck. You're splashing just a couple of cards, and if you draw your splash cards and not the blue mana, you're obviously in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, it's he's playing 2 Guildgate, 4 Temple, 4 Hallowed Fountain. So
10 sources is that's like the perfect number.
It's close to the list that Ben Stark and Pat Cox played the Orzhov deck with 4 dual lands, 4 scry lands, a swamp, and a Guildgate.
Gotcha.
Was their black mana in that deck as well. So
Skyjack going to come across here after Tenjum does just play that Godless Shrine tapped. We'll see what Bush wants to follow up with, if anything. That is Bramaz, King of Oreskos. Is that our first one today?
yes.
Yeah, I think so. He's going to play an Azorius Guildgate and just pass the turn back. See if Tenjum has a removal spell for the Cat Soldier.
Outside of Bile-Blight range, which is a nice little
Of course.
bonus.
There's the Mutavault, and this is the Baron. So, the big one going to show up here for Tenjum, and he's going to confidently pass the turn back. We'll see what Bush is able to find on his turn.
We know he has Rapid Hybridization in his deck. It's unclear if it's actually still in.
And it doesn't look like it's in his hand. You see right now Detention Sphere, which conveniently enough cannot take care of Blood Baron. Another Skyjack hanging out over there. Looks like he's got a Plains, and then that Afara that we saw much earlier in the game. So it might be time to deploy the new blue-white god.
It does give him an opportunity to possibly outpower Blood Baron.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to do, but it's a lot of cards and a lot of presence on the board.
We do see Bush. He's going to play Afara. So that's going to show up to the party, and there is the God of the Polis. This is not the first one of these we've seen today, though. We started off the tournament watching one of these from a Esper deck.
player,
Thank
yes.
you very much.
Just Elspeth and Obsidat making it happen.
Yeah. Blood Baron feeling frisky coming on in. So Bush going to go down to 16. Tenjum going to go up to 18.
Andrew can sit on his hands now with that God in play.
I figured out why he attacked.
That's also reasonable.
So Blood Baron number 2 is going to show up. Again, Tenjum 3 of those in his sideboard, none of them in his main deck. So he's drawn 2 of his sideboard cards. And this is what sideboard cards should do. You draw your sideboard cards, they should have a huge impact on the game.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Blood Baron is doing right now, as Bush has no good attacks. You see Bush does have that Detention Sphere in his hand, just being stranded there. And yeah, he says, I can't beat this.
And I think that his willingness to concede right there is an indicator that he did not have any Rapid Hybridization in his deck.
Yeah, that's what it feels
Because
like.
if he plays a creature there, he draws off his god, he finds a Rapid Hybridization, he's right back in the game,
Yeah.
So I think that quick concession meant that he had no outs.
Let's see if he's going to go back to the drawing board or not, because you see Tenjum get back his sideboard back out, and we'll see if he wants to shift anything around here, of course. It'll be interesting. And James Bush being on the play for game number 3 makes a big difference.
Yeah. Although these, his build of blue-white, certainly the Orzhov build as well, aren't that curve-oriented. They still can go 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, but there's enough comes into play, tap lands, and hiccups with the colored mana, and you have Mutavaults that disrupt your curve sometimes, that it's not quite as consistently explosive as a deck like Boros, or even just straight White Weenie, which I've seen from time to time on Magic Online.
Yeah.
It was very popular week 1 when Theros came out. I saw just a lot of base white decks with Mutavaults. As time has gone on, Mutavault's basically too good not to play. They've expanded in the second color, but that's a deck that can very efficiently curve out.
Yeah.
James's deck is making some concessions to add a little bit more power.
So you do see both players shuffling up. Looks like they're both going to the drawing board here a little bit, and I think, James is probably reaching for those Rapid Hybridizations, realizing that not only does it take care of Blood Baron, but it can also take care of all the other problem cards, and Lifebane, Zombie, Desecration Demon, and Obsidat. So might see him get that old one-man instant out that we typically see reserved for Mono Blue Devotion. Can certainly be useful here.
And James is removing, it appears, some Detention Spheres, which I really like a lot.
Me too.
I know Detention Sphere has some good targets. There's Desecration Demon, Elspeth certainly, but James has to keep a critical mass of pressure in his deck. He can't have all removal all day long for everything Andrew tries to play, because he can't win that sort of game. He has to get on the board fast and then try to use one reactive card to answer the thing Andrew tries to do ultimately.
Yeah, can't be too reactive. We saw Jeff Hooglin have a problem with that a little bit earlier in the tournament when he did lose to the Esper player that had far in their deck of draws, reactive spells, wasn't putting any pressure on. And while it's not the exact same case, again, too many reactive spells not putting enough pressure on will give Tenjum enough time to draw his Blood Barons and whatever he's looking for, Thought Seizes, to take the Rapid Hybridization that may or may not be in Bush's hand and just go from there.
Yeah, it's two very different decks, but the concepts apply the exact same way. When you're the aggressor, it's incumbent on you to be aggressive, of course. And so you cannot hope to answer every single card your control opponent plays. It's just sometimes you have to say that there's certain threats you're going to lose to, or they're going to be difficult for you to answer, to make sure that you draw up opening hands that can go creature, creature, creature.
Well, decks are presented, so both players are happy with their configurations now. And again, James Bush will be on the play as he was able to win in game number 1 with his white-blue aggro deck. Tenjum playing black-white mid-range, a deck that he's been playing a lot on Magic Online recently. Obviously been happy with his results there as he does bring it to this particular tournament, starting off at 5-1. Again, number 6 on our leaderboard. Tied for 6th place. So he's having a really nice year so far.
Yeah.
And he's tied with Max Teets in 6th place for our Open Series leaderboard. It's just a hollowed fountain pass in the turn back. Kind of a bummer for Bush. No one drop to get the party started off with, but he does have a Precinct Captain. Draws a Boros Elite.
Right on time.
And there is Precinct Captain. So we saw what happens in game 1. You tag him with it, it's all over.
We're about to find out.
There's a Thoughtseize. Looks like he's gonna get the hit. Now we take a look here. Now we got some blue cards here.
Ooh.
Negate, rapid hybridization of the blue cards to go along with Spear of Heliod, a Boros Elite, and what looks to be a Fiend Slayer Paladin. So if you're Bush, you need a land, but it's not imperative.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty good hand for James here, as if he draws a land, it's awesome. And if he doesn't, he still has a lot of good reactive tools. For example, he can play Boros Elite and leave Rapid Hybridization up. He can just leave Negate up. So pretty solid leftovers here from James. And again, it does appear that we are untapping with Precinct Captain in play.
That's it.
That's it.
It is lights out. Or something like that. As you see, Tenjum is trying to decide what he wants to take here. Decisions. Actually a pretty hard one. And of course, he is consulting his hand to figure out how this game is going to go. There's an Elspeth and a Hero's Downfall over there, but he's got a real decision to make here, especially because that Negate is, it really messes things up.
Yeah, it throws a wrench, and that's a card that these other, of course, these other White Weenie builds we've seen over the course of the standard format don't have access to something like this. So, you can go removal spell, Elspeth, let's say, and that's usually a curve that's good enough to win the game. Not here.
So Tenjum is consulted, but he is very unsure of himself with this Thoughtseize. Understandably so. It is certainly a difficult decision to make.
Yeah, especially because the way the curve works based on whether or not James draws a land next turn is so different.
It looks like he's going to go with the Boros Lead, so he's hoping that Bush does not draw a land. Bush draws a land. We might see this one end pretty quickly. There's an Orzhov Guildgate. Let's see what he finds. That is a Soldier of the Pantheon. That's just fine.
That's also great here. If Andrew wanted to take a 1-drop, drawing a backup 1-drop is excellent.
Yep. So there's your trigger from the Precinct Captain. Tenjum's going to go down to 16. And we're going to see if Bush wants to put the Soldier in play. I like the idea of playing the Soldier and then leaving a Rapid Hybridization, because in this situation, you do not want to pass for whatever reason and then get Lifebane Zombie. That's a nightmare.
And you can see, and also you can see James gives pause. Drowned Sorrow is definitely on his radar right now. But if Tenjum was willing to Thoughtseize away the Boros Elite, it's very unlikely that card's there.
Yeah. He could be getting a little creative and trying to set a trap, but
that's a really risky line to
yes,
play.
It is. Yes, it is.
Since your opponent can simply pass with Negate up, that is very risky.
Yep. There's certainly a cost to making that decision, as here is a Mutavault. This might be a zombie. It's going to be a Hero's Downfall. Take care of the Precinct Captain. We'll see if he's going to Rapid Hybrid this.
I like it.
Yeah, the question is, do you Rapid Hybrid this or do you save it for the Blood Baron?
I think you have to, because a 3/3 defender on Andrew's side of the table would be really hard. James would be hard-pressed to attack through it with his board as it's currently constituted.
He's giving this a lot of thought.
I like it.
He's going to Rapid Hybrid this. And you see the flexibility of this card, as opposed to red that has Mortars and Boros Charm, and black that has, the removal spells. This is a counter to the removal spell that actually gives Bush more aggression. So now that's going to come into play. It's going to get his Frog Lizard, and it's going to attack for the next turn on 3, 4, 5, 6 damage.
And Lord help Andrew if there's a land on top here, because that Spirit Heliod's still in hand.
Let's see what we find. Not a land.
It is Imposing Sovereign, which is
still good.
A great draw here, as it sets. Andrew's trying to play towards Elspeth or Blood Baron, one assumes, and Imposing Sovereign's another wrench in that plan.
So there is the 2-1 that's going to make things a little bit difficult. We'll see what Tenjum does draw. Looks like that was a Lifebane Zombie, but that's going to come into play tapped, obviously. And again, I don't know if he has he can take the Fiend Slayer Paladin, because the other cards are Spear and Negate.
Yeah, he can't take the two threatening cards at this point, to me, feel like the Spear and the Negate.
Yes, those are the scariest too. You see Tenjum.
And you can tell Andrew right now is just that Imposing Sovereign is it's so annoying and frustrating.
I tell you, the first one's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. I know that Lundqvist was playing Azorius Arrestor.
He likes Arrestor more.
Yeah. But it feels like there should be maybe a mix of those two cards, because, a wrestler in this situation would be nowhere near as good as what Imposing Sovereign is doing on this game.
Yeah, it is definitely. I personally prefer a mix.
Sure.
It depends how many comes into play tap lands. It's a kind of a complicated thing. We can get to it. We can go into that in detail when we get to the break, if need be. But it's certainly at its best right now.
You think about it here too. It's like if Bush draws a land to play Spear, isn't it just lights out? You're attacking for 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, it's just lights out if he hits a land because of the Spear. So what Tenjum was probably thinking right now is, okay, do I have to leave Mutavault back on blocking duty? If I do that, can I even win? Can I even win, period?
Yeah.
And he's just going to blast.
Certainly Lifebane Zombie, we know for sure Lifebane Zombie into Blood Baron does not get him here now because of that Imposing Sovereign.
Is it a land? No. Still fine.
Still a great draw.
Yeah, another copy of Rapid Hybridization, still perfectly fine. And he says, everybody, maybe not. Maybe so, maybe not. See, because right now, all you have to do if you're Bush is you have to play around two things. The Beautiful that's in play and a removal spell. And you've got the removal spell covered with Negate, so you're in great territory right now. And so that's exactly what he's going to do. He realizes that and he says, all right, everybody, let's go. And so now Mutavault's going to go active. He says, all right, block your Imposing Sovereign because that's causing the most problems right now. You see the die there to represent the 3/3. So these are going to trade.
And this is still good for James because he's setting Andrew a turn back from being able to cast Blood Baron.
Yes.
Sits back with Negate and Rapid Hybridization in hand. James has been playing a really sharp match of Magic.
There's a Lifebane Zombie. He says, sure, you can take a look at my hand. I've got Negate, I've got Rapid Hybrid. And there, yep, there's the Frog Lizard, appropriate token. And so there goes the Fiendslayer Paladin. And right now, Tenjum is at 4 life.
Now this Rapid Hybridization is lethal.
It's lethal.
He can upgrade his creature.
Yep. And he sees that play immediately, so he turns a soldier into a 3/3. He says, flip that over, quickly untap, draw a card, never even needed the third land. Drew the Hallowed Fountain now. And he says, attack with everybody, and that is going to do it. So James Bush, with white-blue aggro, defeats Andrew Tenjum 2-1. He may have went back to the drawing board for those Rapid Hybridizations, and if he did, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I had to assume so because of how quick he conceded the second game in the face of those Blood Barons. Probably didn't have an out, but they were awesome that game.
They looked very, very good. You can say they basically earned him the victory there. And he's moving on to 6-1 here in St. Louis. For Tenjum, number 6 on our leaderboard. It's a tough loss to pick up. He's trying to make up ground to get that Season 1 qualification of the Players' Championship, but it's not going to be this weekend that we see him in the elimination rounds.
And now, I understand we're supposed to remain neutral, blah, 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 blah. I got a horse in the race now. James's deck is pretty sweet, I think, and also he just played a really good match of Magic. You can just tell when the operations are smooth, when players' motions are fast. You can tell he was thinking about and playing around the right things.
Yep.
Just a really impressive match against one of the Open Series best competitors, and probably a pretty challenging matchup. Andrew with a ton of very powerful cards against him, a lot of removal, Elspeth and Blood Baron to win the game with, and James is still a long tournament ahead of him, but 6-1, in great shape to make a run to the top 8.
Yeah.